let me move next to the maps you just made, and I'd like to see if you have some questions or comments about that process. What did it feel like? Let's say we'll look at it two different ways. We'll look at any kind of things that you really liked that happened, that are the pluses with mind mapping, and we'll also take a look at any of the concerns you might have or questions about this process that may be less than positive right now. So your feedback on either one of these would be useful.
I like the lack of order for a process and a question like that.
Okay. So you like being able to just put it up in any order. Okay. So I'm going to write the word easier here because I think there's a lot of ways in which the mapping can be easier, and one is that the order is, we'll put any order is okay. Any other responses to the process?
Well, I had a sense of freedom. It didn't seem that you had to follow the usual rules.
Good.
And that you could make your own.
Okay, freedom. Freedom just to let the ideas flow, not to follow rules. Ideas flow. Rules. Now it's interesting, there are some rules to mind mapping that are guidelines, but the main rule is to just let the ideas flow. You do want to put one word on a line and so on. With Mindscaping, which I'll show you later, you don't even have those rules. It's much freer. But to start with, there's a great freedom because every idea goes on the page and it goes anywhere that you think it fits. So there's very few points where it's right or wrong. If it works for you, if the drawing conveys something to you, it works. If you're not sure you can understand your own drawings later, you can always add a word. Any problems or any ways in which it didn't feel comfortable to you this time?
Yeah.
Okay, what?
I couldn't think of ways to draw what I wanted to draw.
Yes, that happens to people a lot. They're like, well, sure, I'd love to draw, but I really can't think of the ways to draw it or what image would work, so it's hard to figure out. Maybe you know what you'd like to draw, but you're not sure. So it's that whole notion of images and the problem of drawing. Anyone else have a feeling of that while you were doing this? It happens to people a lot. In many of my seminars, this aspect is the first thing people say. And when you're teaching mind mapping to other people or practicing it on your own, you can have people do a word map. Now, a word map it follows the mind map rules of having a central piece, but in this case it could just be a word with a shape around it. Then everything flows from there, and just use words. Forget the symbols the first time you make the map. That way you can break the habit of your traditional note-taking and add the symbols later on. Now the fact is, you have the ability to draw if you have the ability to hold the pen and write your name. That's all the dexterity you need, and you can see what you need to draw. Even if you don't have great vision, you can see enough to draw well. So the trick is, how do we get what our hand is doing and what our eye is seeing in some relationship to each other? For cartooning, it's really simple. You don't even have to have anything that you're copying from real life. You can just learn some simple techniques, as any cartoonist would, and use those. So we're going to start with those. For example, you see the faces that are drawn here. You can draw those faces. Just start with a circle or an oval shape and make it large enough that you have room on your paper to add a few features there. And if you want to use pencil or marker, that's up to you. Now we're going to make this person look suspicious. To do that, all we have to do is draw the eyes like straight lines with a little dot at the end, and straight lines with a little dot at the end. Now that person looks like their eyes are kind of narrow and they're looking to the side. So we've already got the suspicious person there. You've got their eyes both into the center, so that gives an entirely different look. But you might want to have looking to the side there. And then we're going to have a nose, which is just a simple, slightly curved line coming down. And this suspicious person is just going to have a little dot for their mouth. Still doesn't look quite suspicious enough. We'll add a raised eyebrow. That always helps. Now, if you look at that, it's just a series of marks on the paper. No more complicated than, less complicated than writing the word suspicious. But so it's a matter of the habit. If you want to add ears and you want to add hair, you can do that with just a few simple lines. So if you were making a map of a project or a plan, and there was someone you work with who you thought might not really go for the plan, or you wanted to think of what are all the things people will say who don't immediately like this, that symbol would be that part of the map, those who are suspicious or uncertain. Someone who's concerned, you can draw two little circles in the upper side of the face shape, and then put little dots in those so the person looks like they're looking up to the side. Then the eyebrows are going to both point up to the center, which adds more sense of concern. But if I want to add the rest, I'll do this simple curved line again for the nose and a dot for the mouth. Looks like this person's concerned about being able to draw. I'll just do a little line up there. You can also make a shape that looks like, you can make the person look a little bit more worried by having their hand there. So here we've got a face that shows concern. All right, well, we want to do somebody who's happy. For that, I like to really emphasize it with a huge smiling mouth. And they can be smiling so broadly that you can see 3 sets of teeth. I put those in, no one ever seems to count, but that's a big smile. And the eyes could even just be little marks like that. Or maybe the eyebrows could be right off the top of their head. So smiling, happy. Now sometimes you want to differentiate between an adult and a child in a cartoon face. And the thing that you need to know about that is that a child's features are lower on the page than an adult's, lower on the face rather. So for example, if this is the face, and I'm going to draw a baby, I'm going to put their eyes way down here and just make a little nose and mouth. So this either is a baby or someone who landed from another planet. Who give it a little curl of hair, still could be anything, but this would represent a baby. And the reason that it really feels like a young face is that position of the features. Even a child who's older, I would still put the eyes down here, nose and mouth, and maybe add a little bit more hair, but it would still feel like a younger face. For an older face, a real quick way to show an older face would be to add a mustache. So I'll make a character like this and give him a little mustache. That's really just a few lines that I've drawn there, and yet it conveys that. You can add hair, or you can add ears, and all of that is okay, but not necessary when you're mind mapping. Because again, you just want to get the main point across. You're really getting down to drawing the essence of something and not every detail of it. That's what I do when I draw an elephant. Rather than trying to draw the entire elephant, I'll put it up over here. I draw a line like this that represents part of the elephant, and a U for the ear, like a letter U, and a dot for the eye. Now that's really sort of the essence of an elephant. It isn't every detail, but it's enough for me to know that I've represented an elephant to represent memory or a trip to the zoo, or you can put an M if it's for memory. Computers is another thing that often you need to draw to represent data or some specific plans you have, or to represent technology in general. For a computer, just draw a rectangle or a square. I'll draw a couple of them up here. And from the bottom of that rectangle, you can draw lines that come out at angles. Now, just that much, to me, looks like a computer. I might not have to take the time to draw much more. But I can continue drawing by connecting it across the bottom. I could make it look more like there's a screen by drawing another square inside the first one with curved corners, rounded off corners. I could put information or data in my computer, or maybe I just want to make a note to myself to put certain information into the computer. So then I might, whatever it was I wanted to put in there, might just be indicated that way. If you'd like to have a little printer, no additional cost, we'll add it right here. Just a small rectangle at the side of the computer. And a piece of paper coming out of that printer will look more like paper if you curve both the lines on both the sides and draw some lines on there to indicate paper. I use light bulb a lot for ideas. And to draw a light bulb, the easiest way I found, when I first started drawing them, they weren't very symmetrical. So I found if I drew a circle and a square underneath it, that then I had my basic light bulb shape, and it was easier then to go back and sort of smooth those shapes together and draw a couple of slightly curved lines underneath for the base of the light bulb. And then you can add a face or an idea or a few words to that image. Now, people, drawing the entire person is sometimes a frightening thought, or you figure you're going to have to revert to the old hangman stick figure. But I'll show you some more simple stick figures that you can use. Let's see, I think I'll start with a new piece of paper for that. This is a basic stick figure idea. You draw a circle, and the arms are created out of this shape, and the legs are created out of a similar shape. So that becomes your person. Now, one nice thing about this kind of person is you can draw quite a few circles in a row and very rapidly draw a whole team or family by just looping along. There they are in a group. You can bring a little kid along too. It's easy. It's a matter of practice. But if I want to convey the team, the committee, the group, the family, it's nice for me to be able to do that rapidly and to have a symbol rather than just words. If I want this team or group to represent a very large crowd of people, I'll draw some more circles, a little smaller back in here, and then just the tops of the circles above that, even smaller. And then indicate with a few more lines in between some more bodies there. And it has the feeling of a large group, even though I haven't taken the time to draw much detail at all. Now, another part of drawing is drawing with comfort. For most of us, when you're not used to drawing very much and you're used to writing a lot, you tend to think about the writing occurring from your fingertips or from your wrist. When you watch someone draw who's comfortable with it, their whole arm moves. And so if you think in terms of your whole arm moving when you draw, it's a very different feeling. Try moving your pen or pencil above the paper. Don't touch down on the paper, but just move over the paper like this and create an oval shape, a nice oval. Make the oval a little smaller so it fits on your page nicely, and then touch down and draw your oval. Try making several. This is something you can practice many times. It doesn't have to be exact, but it gives you a sense of the freedom of creating that shape. Now, what can we do with these oval shapes? Well, I can line up a couple of these oval shapes like this, one on top of the other, and connect them to create a coffee cup, a great symbol for coffee break or lunch break. I could make a trophy. I'll make a large and a small and a large oval like this, and then I'm going to connect it this way and bring a line down. It sort of fans out at the bottom. Now, so far, I've got a nice little martini glass going here. Another little oval, we could have an olive floating in it. Or we could make this into a trophy by adding some little fancy arms to the side of it. Maybe we'll draw a box underneath it. So this might represent reward or recognition. Another thing that's good for reward and recognition, we'll change colors, is to draw a circle and draw a little kind of fluted edge on it, just like little triangles, but you don't have to draw them too carefully. Just a little zigzag around the edge of your circle. And then you come straight down and draw some ribbons from there. Now, if you've drawn an oval shape, this won't look quite right. You want to start over and make it more of a round circle. You can, when you draw a shape, go ahead and go around it a couple times if you need to. You don't have to get it right the first time by any means. But you may need to practice so that you widen the circle out to make it a real round circle again. And then, if you want to get a little more elaborate, you can draw little lines like the grosgrain ribbon You could add some more color. And then again, if this was for reward or recognition, you could write something in here. Sometimes you'll find there really is not one symbol that comes to mind for a certain topic, but you may want to emphasize a word by writing it in a ribbon or banner.